I've ever seen right here.
You've got our best side this time.
Thank you, Commissioners. Secretary Hepler. Last month I kind of gave you the heads up that we were getting close on the economic impact information that we had Southwick put together, and we got some of those numbers finalized. I did send you all of the information that I had this morning. They come in 3 different documents. One is an overview, which is kind of where I'm going to stay today and be fairly brief. Just going to kind of give you the upper level numbers. And then there is a detailed report on both the state park system as well as other the outdoor related activities include hunting, fishing, boating, wildlife viewing, trapping, all of those kinds of things. So there's 3 separate reports. Over the next year or whatever it is, we're going to be pulling out bits and pieces of that. There's some interesting information as it relates to specific species, to specific activities, specific areas. Don't want to go through all that stuff today because I know that we're kind of pressed for time. Just want to kind of give you the upper level numbers, and as we go forward through the year, we'll be talking a lot about these different things, maybe not in a formal presentation, but as they come up with different topics. So. The first thing I want to talk about, and I'll be speaking about 2 very distinct things. The first one is going to be direct spending as well as economic contribution. When we talk about direct spending, we're talking about actual dollars that were spent in the state. And so this is the annual participation in direct spending by residents and non-residents, and this is by activity. Excuse me. So you'll see that the direct spending for fishing was $271 million, a little bit more. Hunting, $682 million. Trapping at just over $1.5 million. Wildlife watching, $51 million. Boating. State park visitation, next big number, $213 million, almost $214 million. And then as well, we had a snowmobiling number. The snowmobiling information came from a previous survey that had been done by the Parks Division, and we added that information into this report. The 2 big numbers here to kind of keep track of is the direct spending total number, $1,332,592,000. That is a big chunk of change, and it gets people's attention. And I think that's what we wanted to find out with this survey is what is actually some of the contribution that hunting and angling and state park system make to our economy in the state. You also see the other number here, over 18 million days of recreational use. The programs that we manage, the wildlife that we're engaged in, the parks that we manage, provide over 18 million days of recreational use. And I think that speaks a lot to our impact on the state and the quality that it provides to our residents and non-residents alike. Now, when we talk about economic contribution, that is the dollars that are direct spent and how they move through our economy. The big number, again, is going to be right here. Total output, almost $2 billion worth of economic contribution. And this particular table breaks it out by some of these activities. Again, I think some of the big things that we want to look at, that $2 billion supports over 18,000 jobs. And about $635 million worth of labor income. The other thing I think that it's important to point out is these activities also contribute over $85 million to state and local governments through tax contributions. When you think about the general funds that come into the department, they are not many. We're basically self-funded through our users pay, and they support those activities. They pay for those different things, and they're also contributing $85 million back to these local governments, and federal taxes of about $124 million as well. Highlights from the state park portion of things. This is just further breaking down some of the information. This is direct spending by categories, as well as on the park side. These individuals are broken up into day users and overnight users. Overnight users spent a night in the park. Day users were visiting the park. They may have stayed at a motel or a private campground outside. They may be a resident that just visited for the day, but they were using the park in some capacity. Lodging was the biggest portion of those expenditures, both for the people that were visiting the park as well as the overnight folks. You can see that 34 million and 28 million. Restaurants and bars, also another big contribution. Grocery and convenience stores, fuel and oil, made up almost $40 million. I think what this tells us, or what I want you guys to get out of this, is that the activities that we support, that we manage, have a direct contribution to those individuals out in our local communities. The hotels, the restaurants, the bars, the grocery stores, the local convenience stores. And it's not an insignificant amount of money. It is, as you add that up, that's over $200 million that are going to those kinds of businesses. That was direct spending. Here's economic effect again, or economic contribution. And you can see that as far as the parks portion of things goes, your total effect of over 3,500 jobs, over $1 million worth of wages, and again, going back to that tax contribution to local and state individuals, over $16 million from those activities associated with the parks portion of things. I wanted to move on, give you, since I spoke a little bit about the park side, I want to talk a little bit about the wildlife and boating side, kind of give you that same kind of look with the direct spending. Again, we're looking at over $1 billion worth of direct spending, and over 8 million, almost $9 million, or excuse me, 9 million days of use. It definitely had more impact than what I maybe thought it was going to. But you can see that hunting, it's almost $700 million, where fishing is $275 million. I don't want to say that one is more important than the other, but hunting does obviously contribute a little bit, well, more than twice as much as what fishing does, at least at this point. Same annual contribution, same numbers that we looked at for the parks portion of things. Over 13,000 jobs and $428 million worth of labor income, and tax revenues of over $100 million. I think, again, when you add these things all up, it's a very significant activity that takes place within these local communities. So, and then these are just a breakout. When we talk about hunting, we did look at small game versus big game, migratory birds, and then we broke out pheasants. Obviously, that's the big one for us. But you can see that pheasants kind of lead the way with $29 million worth of tax revenue, 4,000 jobs. We talk about pheasants kind of being the one that pays the bills for a lot of things, and I think that's accurate, that it obviously has a very big contribution to this department. Let's see, Hunter direct spending in South Dakota. What this did, it took that direct spending and it broke it out by some regions, and I just wanted to kind of throw this out there to you. This is the kind of information that we have that we're now going to be able to use when we're speaking to whoever it may be, whether it's a legislator, whether it's someone within a local community. We're able to take some of these numbers now and break it down from a regional standpoint. You can see up here we've got statewide numbers for deer. This is how much residents spent. This is how much non-residents spent. We can go to pheasants, $112 million by residents, $175 million, if I'm looking at it right, by non-residents. That's our statewide look, but then we can also break it down and go to the Black Hills region, the West River region, and the East River region. And we can see what the direct spending was in those different regions. Again, I don't want to bore you with the numbers. You guys have got this information, but I just wanted to use it as an example of some of the information that we've now got that we can use to have this economic conversation with different individuals. When we talk about, since I was talking about hunting, I want to talk about the angler direct spending as well. You can see that we broke this out basically by the Missouri River and elsewhere within the state. The Missouri River residents are spending about $25 million, non-residents $21 million, and elsewhere in the state, residents about $56 million and non-residents about $30 million. So statewide, we're spending $134 million on trip-related costs, and on equipment, we're spending $136 million. You can see the very large difference here between residents and non-residents when it comes to equipment expenditures. That's because most of us residents buy our boats in South Dakota, so that's where the big disparity comes with this. But you know, this is the big number down here, as I mentioned before, fishing about $271 million worth of direct spending in South Dakota. So that's the 10,000 foot view of the survey. Again, you guys have got the information. We're going to continue to talk about it. I think this is great information to get out to the public. I visited with Emily. We're going to try to put together some, you know, if it's a document, I don't know what exactly it's going to be, how we're going to use this information, but it does us no good to gather this information and not share it, not use it, and not take advantage of it. So we'll be looking for ways to do that now that we've got a final product. So.
Okay, Scott, thanks. That really tells quite a story, which will be good to get out.
Thank you.
Okay, next Tony will be up with a report for us.